we have the talk of Professor Bimal Roy of the Indian Statistical Institute in Kolkata. Professor Roy has a main research focus on combinatorics and optimization. So the title of the talk is Recent Issues in Cyber Domain Pertinent to Fintech. The floor is yours, Professor.
Okay. Thank you, Sylvia. And let me thank Anindo and Sherry for inviting me, because in this forum, I'm basically a very unlearned man, because I have no idea about the domain that you have expertise in. I work basically in cryptography, and initially I agreed to be part of this conference when Anindo approached me. Is that I want to learn myself this new domain, and where I could possibly use some of my cryptographic results and some research topics in this domain. And just to brief a little bit, so right now I do have a project from the Royal Society of the British Royal Society, jointly with Professor Feng Hao at University of Warwick, and we have been trying to use blockchain different applications. We're trying to use it for elections, e-voting, and now we are trying to just started working on distributed finance. So in this context, me and Feng, we both are learning what is finance, and then only we can think of distributed finance. And our society has put confidence on us that we are capable of learning this and really do some work in this area. And I wanted to talk in a very different way, and because I thought I'll be physically interacting with these people, a small group, 25, 30 people, and that would have been my real objective. But in this platform, we're helpless. We have to use this platform. And I was trying to make a presentation, but meanwhile, I think I told Anindo and Sherry that I had some family debacle in just few days. 3 of my family members out of 4 said me they are COVID infected, and I'm the only fit person in the house. And the joke is that I'm kind of isolated. These 3 are moving around in the house because this 3 are affected. So I have to take a load of now. Our houses are sealed. That's a rule of the city. My house is sealed now, so only somebody gives me some supplies at the door, I collect it. And on top of that, few days back, I lost my mother in that. So I'm in a very big doldrum. At one point, I was trying to withdraw myself, but then I thought maybe I shouldn't withdraw. I should give a different approach. And I'll try to tell you, I'll tell you just 4 different stories. Okay, because and then at the end of the these 4 stories, I'll tell what are the issues I foresee in this fintech domain. Okay, the stories are very elementary, and it comes from my own experience. It's not a story as such, so my own experience from my childhood. The first story goes like this, and after each story, I'll bring out what are the issues pertaining to the fintech domain. When I was very young, I remember my parents. I don't know the history of India. Many of you know. India got independence from British in 1947, but at the same time, our state, Bengal, got divided. So the one part became part of Pakistan, other part became part of India, and there was a strict war. I think border and movement, currency, everything became different. So my parents moved to this part, Calcutta part, the Indian part, but he had his brother or other cousins left on the other side. So in one of the wedding of one of my cousin, long back, he said, I was very young. I still remember the story. He was trying to send a gift for the wedding. Now, the regulations, in Britain, I've learned that the British people are so bureaucratic. Handling this Royal Society project for last 3-4 years, I understand the bureaucracy of British. I was always cursing the Indian bureaucracy. But anyway, the bureaucracy is such that if he has to send even little money, he has to apply to the central bank, the Reserve Bank of India in India. He has to get a permission, and then you could probably get a conversion to British pound or in US dollars. You lose money at that end, And then you can send that dollar or pound to then East Pakistan. And the other person has to then convert it to the Pakistani money. And this takes anything between 3 to 6 months, such a bureaucratic process. And when he came to know that that his niece is going to get married, and then he found it the quickest way. I think everybody know it. I remember I was holding my father's hand and going to near a railway station. There is a small grocery store. So he went there and he told that, I want to send my brother who is in this little town of East Pakistan, and I want to send this our Indian money, say 100 rupees, which was pretty large in early 1960s. And then say, okay, good. So he just gave a piece of paper, scribbled something illegible. My father didn't understand. I didn't understand. He says, you want to send 100 rupees? So he gave me 120 rupees. So my father gave 120 rupees. In exchange, he got this scribbled small piece of paper. Makes no sense to me. Makes no sense to my father either. And then he said, send this to your brother and ask your brother to go and meet a similar grocery store near in his town. Okay, so my father writes a letter in an envelope, putting this little piece of paper and says, go and visit that grocery store. Okay, and the envelope is mailed. And then as I understand that he actually got the money from that other grocery store in the other country. So this is what we learned later on, Hawala. But this was very secured. And not a single person complained that they lost their money. Okay, such a physical communication, very secured communication. Now, if I am a regulator, how can I stop this? Number one, there could be intelligence people who could identify that these shops are getting into this business. Okay, that's one way, but that's intelligence. That's not science. The other way could be what you call brute force attack. Track each and every letter which is going from this country to other country. Open that, read it, and you find something not explainable. Okay, and then you try to catch the two persons who are involved. And here you can actually identify the person who is the sender, who is the receiver. Okay, but that is the brute force attack. So millions of mails are going from this country, that country. Now exploring all the mails, opening the envelopes, checking it, the kind of manpower you need, the time you need, is impractical. And probably the intelligence was not that prompt. So the process went on very smooth. Okay, so this is what we call brute force attack. But today what happens, okay, now if I'm going to make it more secure, I'm talking about both sides. There's one flaw there, because in that system, the sender and the receiver both could be identified from this letter. So that is a point of weakness. So if I think of, I want to send this money exchange very smooth, I have to somehow get rid of this. If you can get hold of this communication, the state or the police should not understand who is sending whom. So if I want to more secure, then I have to understand, to make sure that by no means the sender and the receiver's identity is not revealed by this. Okay, so this is this is what we call cryptocurrency these days. Okay, so one of the things they have achieved in this one is that even if you track all the communications in the net, okay, if you go through all the mails, scan it by another computer program, it's almost impossible to find out who is sending whom. The identity is really being kind of secured. So this is my first story. And this pertains to, I think, Fintech.
Bimal, just a clarification, right?
Sure.
So you're right about the identity, but we would know, we would be able to say who the wallets are from, right? Because that is public information, blockchain.
No. I'll come to that later on. The next part I'm coming, my next story. Okay, my stories are given one by one. They're all in a string. So your concern will be taken care in my second story. Okay, so this is one of my favorite play. I read the play in my own language, Bengali, written by one of our greatest writer, Rabindranath Tagore. The name of the play is The Red Oleander, the flower. So I saw this play 3-4 times. I read this play a couple of times, and one of my most favorite one. And it goes like this. I'll tell the story a little bit to understand the essence of cryptography there. I didn't know that Tagore knew cryptography. Okay, so but he knew in some sense. Okay, so so that is the time of industrial evolution. So the industries are coming up in India also. The British government is setting up industries. Now, see, you need industrial labors, and there are no supply of labors that time. But there are no dearth of poor Indian farmers. So there will be agents. I think same thing happens here also. Even today also, the agents will find out the poor farmers and they will promise them job in an industry, in a city or little suburb of the city, and people will be lured and will come and join this industry as a worker, and ultimately they become slaves. So, what is the process of the indictment? There will be something what we call this HR these days. The person will ask this poor farmer, your name, your father's name, your address, and blah blah, all your personal history. Okay, and then depending on the history, then he or she will assign a unique number to that labor. Okay, and henceforth, this person is identified by that number. All the identities are gone. So this person is referred as this number, that number. So years go by, and they are basically slaves. They cannot go back home. They have to slog there. They hardly get paid, hardly get enough food. It's just like a slavery. It went on. I think Tagore was trying to protest this industrial slavery. But then I thought, but Tagore must be something beyond that. Just not protesting industrial slavery, but he must be talking something more human there, something much more human there. And then comes the ultimate. So one worker is talking to other worker. He says, "Hey, do you remember your father's name?" He says, "Oh, no, I don't remember my father's name. Because my identity is now only this number." And then the other guy says, "Do you remember the name of your village?" He said, "No, for 10 years, I am being used by this number only. I can't remember the name of my village." So their identity has been completely destroyed, okay, by this putting a number to this identity. And this is what we call this the hash function. Okay, so what is the hash? Hash is basically you take any big text and try to map it to a shorter string. It will have certain properties. What are the properties? Number one, it should be easily computable. Okay, one person cannot have two different hashes. And the most important point is that from the hash value, you cannot come back to the actual original information. So that was the problem with those labors, because they are being used by the hash value all the time. They could not go back to the original file and could retrieve their father's name or their village name. It's completely. This is called a one-wayness. So from the hash value, they could not get back to the actual file. And the other thing is that we require that it's very difficult to find two individuals being mapped to the same hash value. And it's very obvious because if I think of the file of the input, size of the input file, this is very, very large compared to the output one, which is very small. So if we think of any function, which is injective, a large domain and very small range, there has to be collisions. There has to be this cannot be 1-1. There has to be many to 1. But then I think the catch is that it's very difficult to find two individuals which are being mapped to the same one. That is the hash function. So that's what we talk about. So now, if Sherry, I take all your personal things and I get a good hash function. I'll talk about what the good hash function these days. I think the current fintechs use, I think, MD4, which is not good. I think they must change everything to what we call the SHA-3. The US government NIST had a public competition because MD4, MD5 did not seem to be that safe. So they wanted new proposals from all over the world to make a new standard. It went through lots of process of examinations and analysis, and they finally came zeroed down to one function. This is called the sponge. This is the SHA-3. Now, my first thing is that everything should be replaced by SHA-3. And as I see all the fintech applications, they still use MD4 or MD5, and these are not safe enough. And there are attacks on that. So probably I could even impersonate. What is meant by impersonation? That I could create another person who will map to the same hash value. So I become the same person. Okay, so this is, and so if your identity boils down to your hash value and we communicate using our hash values, what people would know from the communications, this hash value to that hash value. Okay, and from the hash value, you don't know who the person is. So the problem that I had with my father's Hawala system, that name to name, this receiver and sender are identifiable, it's now very difficult to identify, because we are going to map all our identity, like Tagore said earlier, to a number, and from the number, no one can actually easily go back to the original one. And if I have a strong hash function, nobody can impersonate. This is very, very important in the financial domain, that if I could impersonate Sherry, I could take all her money, or I could just take all the jobs when somebody is getting, some tenures and so on and so forth. In all fintech domain, this impersonation is a huge problem. And so use of hash function is very important to stop this this impersonation, and that is done with good hash functions. And my recommendation would be that all fintech applications do not use any more MD4, MD5. We are cryptologists, we have studied those things. Those are not safe enough as of today. So we should go back to SHA-3, or maybe something as good as SHA-3. I know in the government, they are very skeptical in using public domain algorithms. So what they do is you can tweak SHA-3, probably you can get a crypto experts, and you can tweak SHA-3 to the extent that it's not SHA-3, but you can prove that the security level of SHA-3 and your algorithm is going to be more or less same. So this kind of research that we have been doing. So this is to stop impersonation. That's my second story. Okay, so the third story is for the communication. I remember, and this is also a strong moral. I read another story. Again, in my own language, a very short story. A postman.
Sorry, Bimal. Can I just ask you a question about?
Sure.
SHA-3 and all that. In lots of instances, there isn't this what you call it, completely unbreakable code, right? As you know, right?
Yes.
All codes can be broken.
Everything can be broken.
Everything can be broken. That's the whole point.
Yes.
Axiomatic hacking will take place, right? Yes. So then it's only a question of, like we have OTP, you just keep changing things because there is no hack-free formal system. Yes. Formal systems are vulnerable. That is the whole point. Formal systems are good because, they give precision, but it has to be defended to the nail. And there is no fine that race will never, it goes on and on and on, right? You're only one step ahead, right? So what is your view about that?
No, see, I'll tell you something. All this notion of security, privacy, these are very abstract concepts. It's like God. You believe it is there, you don't believe it's not there. Okay, so I make a joke like this. Now, what do you mean by a perfectly secure thing? So I actually, the cryptologist, we can actually map to anything what you think as a perfectly secure thing. I can map it down to some like this experiment, that if I had an unbiased coin I don't know whether anybody can claim he or she has an unbiased coin. I don't even know how to manufacture an unbiased coin. I don't know if there exists an unbiased coin. But if, that's a very abstract concept, if I had an unbiased coin, and if I could go on tossing it independently, I don't know how to make independent tosses. These are all abstract concepts. If I could go on tossing this unbiased coin independently and write 1 if I get head, write 0 if I get tail, then I will generate an infinite sequence of zeros and ones. Okay, that is what is called in Shannon's notion, zero information sequence, zero entropy, maximum entropy, zero sequence. And all the notion of security, I can bring it down mathematically to this one. Now, since this is abstract concept, we don't know whether it's real or not. That's why no system is foolproof. Everything is vulnerable. So all we try to do, if I can map, if we propose something, I try to map it to this particular very basic experiment of tossing a coin independently. And we try to see how close, again, close within quote, we are to this abstract experiment. The closer we are, probably we feel better, safer. But again, since I don't know how to make this sequence, so the notion of security and privacy is only abstract. And I say, and then I make the joke, if you believe it is there, like God, if you don't believe it's not there. Okay, but everything is vulnerable. So this is the bottom line. Everything is vulnerable. Okay, given if I had infinite number of machines, if I had infinite amount of time, infinite money, I could break any system. But again, there's another thing going on there, which I also tell the fintech people. Now, see, if a thief comes and try to get some money from me, to get $5, £5, will he or she be able to spend 15 pounds? No, right? So what is the cost? So if that person tries to cheat me, or tries to get something or compromise my security, and if his gain is £5, and if he has to spend more than £5, then he is not going to attempt that one. So our security comes to that level. The loss with this for this breach of security and the cost.
So you're saying it's just economic incentives then?
Yes. And actually, I say I want to meet all these people physically, and we're trying to use some game theory there. Okay, some game theory, risk and etc. I have some students working on this area now because of this Royal Society project. I've been involved with 2-3 students in Warwick and also in my ISI Kolkata who are working in this. These are basic incentive systems and so on and so forth. And in a talk, I cannot really talk like this too much. If I had a glass of beer with me and spend 1 hour with you, and then probably we can talk much more on that. Maybe I'm looking forward to that in near future.
Well, we have virtual drink, if that helps.
Okay. So virtual drinking is not going to make that happen. We have to have real drink and have a discussion on this one. So this is my my third story. I didn't even start. The third story was we have to be very careful. I think it's the same line of what Sherry was telling. Nothing is very secure. And this is again from one of my very favorite short stories in Bengali. For Bengalis would know Bonoful. Is one of my very favorite writers. So a postman had this capability of identifying these handwritings. He was supposed to be a handwriting expert. And all my respect to all ladies. He wanted to find out what does this young ladies write in their letter. And he knew from the top of the envelope, from the name, that whether it is written by a male or a female. If it is a female, the age group, little child or a youngest girl or an old girl. And he was only interested in trying to read the letters written by younger girls, say 18 to 30 or so. Okay, so on and so forth. But how would you do that? Because all these envelopes are very, you have these gums in his old time. So we have this age, you put the gum, very hard gum, and seal it, and then it goes to the post office. And the post office person will give it to the peon who will distribute it to the postman to the houses. It's very difficult. The gum is very, very strong. You cannot really tear it. That is the notion of security we're using there. Now, what this postman finds out, that in that post office, there is a small heater and a kettle of water. Because, in our culture, we learned it from British to drink tea. So I drink tea 8 to 10 times a day. So we have a kettle, water will be boiling. And then whenever I drink, I like to drink water in the post office, this postman people, they will just boil the water and make some tea with that boiled water. And then what you observed, this is the crucial part that everybody has to be aware of. I'm pretty sure the writer didn't know all these things. This is my own discovery from the story. That he discovered that when the steam comes out from the nozzle of this kettle, if you hold the end of that envelope sealed with the gum, like this, the gum loosens. The envelope doesn't get damaged, the gum loosens. Okay? And then he can actually open that envelope, take that letter out, okay, read it, put it back again, put the gum back. So he has did the intrusion into the security system, and that, some 80 years back, a Bengali author could realize that no system is secure. So the moral of the story is that no system is secure. I don't tell you the last part of the story. Maybe I should tell it because it's a different mode of conference. The last part of the story, there has to be a twist, the punchline in the story. So one day he opens a youngest lady handwriting. He opens it. He reads the letter that he is writing to someone, that it's impossible to stay any longer with this old bum. Just take me out of this place. And who signed it? His wife. Okay, so this was the story. But what is the moral there? That nothing is secure. Even those her gums could be loosened by the steam coming out of the nozzle of the kettle. Okay, so my high school math teacher, he told me this story. He told us this story, and I read it also. He said, we used to have examinations and class tests, etc. Then he will write down the scores and then seal it in an envelope, and he will send it to the headmaster there, or we call it principal of the school. Okay, but in this context, he was telling this story, and then it's the peon who takes this envelope from me to the headmaster. He can reach into this entire security system, like this story. So I have designed a new method of securing things. And I wish he could write this in some form. He would have been very rich by now. But he didn't write anything, but I remember his solution. He said, I'll make a small attache case. Attache cases are what? You have two locks at both the ends. Okay. If you have to, in order to open that, you have to open both the locks. Two are different keys. He says, I've designed a small attache case. One key is left with me, and one key is left with the headmaster or the principal of the school. So what I do, I put your mark sheet inside the attache case, lock my side, and I ask the peon, take it to the principal. The principal cannot open it. So the principal does, the principal locks his side. Then sends the peon, take it back to the teacher. Okay. Now it comes to the teacher, and what does he do? He opens his side and tells the peon, take it back to the principal. And then the principal opens his side and he gets the document. Okay, now, so what he has achieved, not only secured, but he has also authenticated. He has authenticated that the headmaster, the principal, and only he can open this one. Nobody else can. And at the same time, the principal also is ensured that it's this teacher, only he has sent this mark sheet, nobody else. So we not only...
We're coming to the end of the conference.
Okay,
so this is the public and private keys.
Yes, there's a public and private keys. So I learned it from my school teacher when this even concept didn't exist at all. Okay, so with this example, this is exactly, and so what happens, in all these things, you generate private keys and public keys. Public keys you put in the public domain, private key you keep it with yourself, and public keys actually could be in the bitcoins. The public key is actually your identity, and what is amply proven that from the public key you cannot derive the private key of mine. Okay, so identity is not compromised.
I mean, to my mind, we'll just have a couple of questions if there are. The blockchain, the man-made blockchain, as you know, is relatively new, right? The Bitcoin 2009, circa Nakamoto, and so on. I mean, it's a phenomenal invention. I mean, I know the Bitcoin itself is hugely, energy intensive, because to crack the what do you call it, the hashing that you have to do, you have to make many attempts, right? So that costs a lot. But nevertheless, the whole concept of securing software-based accounting systems, the fact that you can't go back, the immutable history of the past, and no inconsistent or no fraudulent new blocks can be added. I mean, it's a phenomenal concept, is it not?
Yes, no, it is. But this is nothing very new, to be very honest.
Why do you say that?
Yes, because in the blockchain, what they use as the primitives are basically some tree structures and hash functions. So Nakamoto, we don't know who is he or she, but he puts these things in a very nice fashion. And I think in most of the applications I've seen, you may not need blockchain. Just simple hash function will serve the purpose, because all you want to make sure the integrity part, data integrity. And data integrity, and I've seen people, you have a blockchain, so you use it. The overhead is huge, the cost is huge. And you can actually, when I try to understand the actual application that they want to use the blockchain for, and I say 80% because you don't need the blockchain. Blockchain is...
Yes, blockchain is if you really want to carry the ledger forward in time.
Yes. Yeah. But you could possibly do it by a much simpler way, because integrity is basically your concern, and integrity could be achieved by good hash functions, and you need not have such a complicated overhead. And if I could talk to somebody, I've talked to many people here. Even when I come to Warwick almost every year. Only for last 2 years I couldn't come. And we have seen most of the applications the fintech people do. You don't really need a blockchain. You are overusing it. You could do a much simpler, much cheaper solution using hash functions. So this is one thing I want to warn it. But what is important for me with this cryptocurrency is matter of the finance people. What I don't understand, see, the way I learned, I don't know much economics or finance, but the basic thing I understand that the currency we have running in the economy has something to do with the economic activity of the nation, right? So it's the goods and services we produce in the nation, but that is directly responsible for how much currency is being minted. Now here, you are minting a currency has nothing to do with the economic activity of the country. Now, this is what, as an ordinary person, I feel very scared of.
I mean, I think Willem will be,
Yes. So
you want to add something about it.
This is my concern. My concern is the minting part. Now, you mint currency, it looks like almost like a stock market. Price goes up and down, price goes up and up and up. So suddenly we have so much money in the economy. Nothing to do with the economic activity of the country. Now,
Willem, do you want to add something and we can bring...
Yes. So I want to stop it here because this is my concern. I want to understand from you guys how do we answer this question? This is minting money without any economic activity. Is that not going to be damaging the economy in the long run? That's what is my concern. Okay, I'll stop here. Probably we'll go for a discussion. So I changed my entire mode of presentation in a very different way. I want to put my concerns.
No, I think most people will remember your stories. I can't remember the one about the headmaster, about the private.
Yeah.
Very good one.
Yeah, okay.
Willem, do you want to say anything about Bitcoin and Bimal's concerns about how it isn't representing GDP?
Yes. Suddenly GDP goes up with the activity. Money flows yes, Vilan.
I'm a great fan of the blockchain. I think as the mechanism for conceptualizing and updating self-referential mechanisms.
No, I'm also a great fan. No, I don't misunderstand. I'm also a great fan.
But cryptocurrencies based on blockchain are a pure speculative bubble. It's an asset without intrinsic fundamental value. So it would be crazy to put public faith in that. And I hope very much that they will be regulated or legislated out of existence. Yes. I see many applications for blockchain in finance, especially, may permit a much more inclusive financial system, not dependent on the ability to access complex and often distant financial intermediaries. But cryptocurrencies, I think, are definitely the wave of the past.
Okay. Now, actually, we have been working on e-auctions. Okay, we have been using blockchains for e-auctions.
Yes, indeed. Yes, that will work.
This is so. See, my current project is of the Royal Society project with the University of Warwick. We are handling all these things. The blockchain use in e-voting, e-auction, distributed finance, and etc.
All right.
So blockchain, I'm also a good supporter, but my concern is that many of the applications may not need blockchain, such a heavy thing. You could do it. That's what is my concern.
Good because it's very computationally intensive.
Yes.
Shyam.
Well, it seems to me that we need to separate blockchain as a record-keeping system and cryptocurrency as a form of money. And I'll say a few things about money. Money has always been a symbol, even though we started out with cowries and seashells and loaves of bread or dried fish as money thousands of years ago. And they took the coin form or paper currency form. But the essence of money is purely symbolic. And now with the electronic technology, that fact that money is really pure symbol, it has nothing, and its value lies in the social norm of its acceptance by others has become very obvious. And, in the past, you could think, oh, gold is money, this is money. But money part of gold coins also was symbolic. And so now, if you think about money as symbolic, the question is, who will have the authority in society? Who shall we give the right to create those symbols? In most societies, that most of the time in history, we have given that monopoly to the sovereign governments, assuming that government can be trusted with managing and creation of money in some responsible fashion, which has been true most of the time, not all the time. There have been cases where currency have been debased by government policies. But to give that right to create those symbols to unregulated private parties is just an invitation to disaster. And I find my students here, there are students who become millionaires by trading in cryptocurrency. And you talk to them about money and they laugh at you. And they think that they are very, very smart. And they are, by creating more and more symbols, we are creating the illusion of wealth. But there is what we call, there has to be an end condition to everything, because ultimately money is a Ponzi scheme. And if you're going to run a Ponzi scheme, entrusting the control of that Ponzi scheme to anybody other than the government is highly risky. Even government is not without risk. But what's the alternative?